assistant professor in the nutrition program in the College of Health Solutions, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our colleague and own from the nutrition program, Dr. Punam Ohri-Vachaspati. She is a registered dietitian and received her PhD and her master's degree from Tufts University in the School of Nutrition and Food Policy and Applied Nutrition. And then she did her undergrad at University of Delhi in India. She's a public health nutrition expert who researches and examines the impact of policy and environmental change approaches on food access and physical activity opportunities in low-income minority communities. Her important work extends across ecological levels, including the home, the school, and broader community settings. She's been funded by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institutes of Health, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, as well as the U.S. Department of Agriculture and many other foundations and organizations. She's served on editorial boards for the Journal of Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and Public Health Nutrition. And her most recent accomplishment we're still very excited about, which happened in 2016-2017. She got to work on Capitol Hill with Senator Kristen Gillibrand as a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Health Policy Fellow. Please help me in welcoming Punam Ohri-Vachaspati.
Thank you for that nice introduction, Corey, and I have to compliment you. You say my name right.
Oh, thank you.
I can't say that about a lot of faculty in our, so thank you. Yes, the Health Policy Fellowship on the Hill was very interesting. It would have been even more interesting had Kristen Gillibrand stayed on in the foray for the presidential elections. She dropped out recently, but nonetheless, that was a wonderful experience. So what I thought I'll do, I'm trying to do it like this. Let's see if it allows me to, because I don't have a clicker. So I'm going to see if I can click from here. I can do it from here. This is pretty nice. I didn't know that. So I wanted to start off by introducing my team, the ASU Food Policy and Environment Research Group. Sorry, I'm missing in this from this picture, but this is our core group. And our group expands and shrinks, as you know, as students come in and out. But it's a wonderful group of students, postdocs, and faculty to work with. And I have been working with several of them for the last 8-9 years, and it's been a really wonderful experience. And one of our team members is right here amongst you. So I wanted to give you a little introduction about what I do before I get into my talk, so that you know what kinds of research, as Corey mentioned, you know, most of my work focuses now on policy and environment approaches for behavior change and health outcomes. So I thought I'll take you on a little tour of our website. Maybe here. So oh, come on. Where did it go? Okay. So as a group, as I mentioned, you know, we're interested in food policy and environmental approaches in community settings and schools. For younger children, most of our work focuses on the child population. We also delve into adults and mostly parents of young children. The next thing I wanted to just share was some of the areas that our group focuses on. They include looking at examining food and physical activity environments and programs. Again, in both in communities and in schools. We look very closely at federal food and nutrition policies. So these could be your school nutrition guidelines or WIC or SNAP programs or menu labeling and things like that, that are large scale policies that are implemented at the federal level and how they impact us and how are they implemented, and a number of issues related to that. And like many research groups, we are interested in methodology development because looking at policies and community food environments is a relatively young field, so there aren't that many validated, reliable instruments that are available. So we invest our time and effort in developing some of these measurement tools as well that help us in our work. Then I wanted to just draw your attention to our publications page, because I want to highlight one of your peers' work here that we just released. And so we've been doing this work. I've been at ASU for the last 10 years. So I've been doing a lot of things over these past 10 years, which has generated a large body of literature. And because our work is so community embedded, we work in the communities because we want to change, shape policies and environments in community settings. So just publishing it in journals is not really helpful in some ways. I mean, it's helpful because we are required to publish in journals, and it's helpful because we are able to get our peers' input into it and make our publication stronger and better. But in order to actually change things at the community level, you got to speak the language of the communities. So in order to do that, from time to time, we put out what are called research briefs or policy briefs. So just this month, Clint and Jessica, a former student of mine, compiled a series of papers that we've published in school settings and in communities into what is called a research brief. So each paper is summarized in a way that talks to someone who is not familiar with the scientific jargon about what that paper was about and what were the implications that came out of it. So this has, I'll suggest that you spend a little bit of time to look into it. So as I said, it has key findings in it, some figures and graphs from our papers, and then each study is then, this is the kind of the so what of the study. What did that study tell you in a sentence? And ask Clint, it wasn't easy to come up with that one sentence because we used to writing long papers. And then in the end, we end up with some policy implications. What is someone to do with this information? What can communities do? What can they learn from it? How can they apply what we've done in their work? And this is really important when you do this kind of work, because in fact, we were in one of the cities that I work in New Jersey yesterday, giving our, collecting our data for the next round. So the people who help us collect this data want to know, what do we do with all that data? So we are not collecting the data and out of there is no feedback. So we make really conscientious effort to kind of give it back to the community, give it back to who is our community stakeholders, to say, okay, you give us this data, it's meaningful. This is what we do with it, and this is how it may be useful for you. So these documents are then disseminated widely among our stakeholders, but then also because we work in partnership with Center for State Health Policy in New Jersey, this is disseminated more widely to decision makers. So people can use this information for their local decision making. So that's kind of in a nutshell the cycle of research that we do. We choose a problem, conduct extensive research, and then publish in papers, but also do these policy briefs, which I think all of you are taking NTR 527 next semester, right? So you will be writing your own policy briefs. And in fact, Clint and Jessica both took that class, and I made use of them having taken the class to then work on it. And it was really, they've done a fabulous job. So if you get a chance, please do look at these documents. So today, what I thought I'd talk to you was something that I've really gotten interested in, and as the title of the talk suggests, spillover effects of food assistance programs. So generally, when you think about reading an evaluation, which I'm sure in this course and in others you've done, right? Reading about program evaluations, what do those evaluations normally include? Anyone? What do these evaluations, what are they evaluating? Let's say you read an evaluation about the school food program or about SNAP or something, what is it that they are trying to assess usually? Or what would you, if you wanted to see if a program was beneficial or not, what would you assess? Anyone? The outcomes. So for example, just pick anything. Let's say it's for school foods. Fruit and vegetable consumption among people who are participating. What else would you look at? Exactly, you know, maybe the cost effectiveness, how much money went in, what did we benefit? So things of that nature, that's the usual way we look at evaluation. So, you know, reach, how many people did it reach? You know, any paper you start reading about school food programs starts with 30 million meals are served, right? So that's the kind, and that's a very important number, right? So we say, is it targeting intended populations? Is it reaching the beneficiaries? You read enough about it, about SNAP, you know, is it reaching the millionaires or the people with low income, you know, low incomes? So we look at that. We look at benefits of participation, as you mentioned, you know, our children eating more fruits and vegetables as a result of it, and then the cost benefit analysis that you brought up. So that's our traditional way of thinking about it, and that's how I look at programs when I am looking at outcomes. I'm looking at, you know, benefits of participation. But over the last few years, I've gotten interested in the spillover effect. And so the two examples that I'm going to talk about are done with students. And I thought this would be a good way for us to showcase student work that was done with me, and also to see where are we going with that. So spillover effects can be thought of as side effects, right? But in this case, I'm talking about positive side effects, right? Usually we have this negative connotation that spillover effects or side effects are negative. But here I'm talking about beneficial side effects. There can be unintended consequences that can be negative, and we can talk about those as well. So a secondary effect or a spillover effect is like a secondary effect that follows from the primary effect, but may be removed in place and time from the event that caused it. So if a policy caused a primary effect, the secondary effect may be a little bit distanced from it, but you can still link it back to the cause. And we'll use a WIC and fresh fruit and vegetable program as examples to talk about the spillover effect. So most of you know, and I'll go through it quickly because I'm sure you've discussed this now or in your previous classes about WIC. So about half of the infants born in United States participate in WIC. About a quarter of children up to the age of 4 are participate in WIC. About $7 billion are, there's 7 million participants, and about $6 billion in spending happens on WIC, and it is administered by the Food and Nutrition Services of USD. It's the third largest food assistance program after SNAP and the school foods. So it's a big program and has been studied extensively. It's offered to, as you know, to infants and children under the age of 5, and to pregnant and breastfeeding mothers who are, and they all have to show, in addition to income eligibility, a nutritional need. So it's very well targeted, very well designed. The benefits are, again, very targeted based on the food packages, based on the dietary guidelines, what are we lacking. So it's a very well designed program and well implemented. And I also have to say it's one of the most studied food assistance programs, and with consistently showing positive outcomes. So the packages, as I list here, are depending on the beneficiary, you know, you get a certain amount of food package, and nutrition education is given to all, and referrals to healthcare providers based on, again, your age and risk factors. So the benefits of participation are many. Some you may have already talked about, right? As you said, children who participate in WIC have better diets. Women who participate in WIC tend to have lower at-risk pregnancies, and the birth rates are higher. The birth weights are higher. There are lower rates of obesity in some subgroups of WIC participants. There is also a recent study showed future cognitive benefits. So if you participated in WIC during your childhood, you have better outcomes, cognitive outcomes in later years. So that's fantastic. It's a great program. So the question then becomes, do non-beneficiary children, remember I told you it's children under 4 who are eligible, but a household can have older children in it too. So the question is, do non-participating children living in WIC households also reap the benefits of the WIC program? Right? It kind of makes sense because if the food is coming into the household, what's happening with that food? So there have been a couple of studies that have looked at this. Both studies one was done in 2009 and one was in 2013, but there isn't a lot of literature on it. So one study found that the healthy eating index scores were higher among non-participating children, and it was higher when there were multiple WIC participants. Another one looked at physician-rated health scores. So children who participated, lived in households that participated in WIC had better health, physician-rated health outcomes. So they were rated in good or very good health. But again, there were some, this was limited to older males and to some racial groups. So it wasn't consistent. So there isn't much literature on it for us to kind of understand what's exactly going on. So the question we wanted to ask was, we were interested in, the time I started thinking about this study was when, so let me just backtrack. So in 2017, the National Academies of Medicine proposed a new modification to WIC. Does everyone know when the last WIC package modification happened? 2009, yes. So the program started in the 70s. There were no modifications done to the WIC package till 2009. And you can imagine how much the field had advanced. So 2009 was the first modification, which is when cash value vouchers were added, which allow WIC women to purchase fruits and vegetables. So last year, or 2 years ago, the National Academies of Medicine came out with another proposal to change WIC packages. And there are significant changes in that. No one's talking about this because right now we are not in a stage in Washington, D.C. where nutrition policy is high on anybody's agenda right now. So that's when we started thinking about it. So if you made all these changes to the WIC package, what would it do to the children? So that raised the question for me as to what was happening with the food that was coming into the household. So we set out to answer this question with one of your former cohort members, Stephanie Steves, was, do non-participating children living in WIC households have healthier eating patterns? And then do those patterns differ by demographic characteristics of the household? So we use the New Jersey Child Health Study data for this. This is a study that I've been conducting in New Jersey. I came from Rutgers, so I've been following cohorts of children and schools since 2008 and 9. So we have longitudinal data and we have multiple panels. So there's a lot of data available that we can use to answer interesting questions. So this was a secondary analysis from 2 independent cross-sectional panels. And we looked at about 616 5 to 18-year-old children who were not eligible for WIC. And we looked at, and these children all came from households that would have qualified for WIC. And they had at least some member in the household that would have been eligible for WIC. So the household composition was the same or similar. We have for this study, we have data, parent reported data on WIC participation, household demographics, income, and all of that, and information on one randomly selected child from the household. So that was the 5 to 18-year-old that we picked. So what we found, I'll get to the results without showing you all the other demographics, was, so we looked at these 4 items. We are doing food frequencies in this targeted food frequency because it's a very long phone survey, so we don't have the luxury of doing a more detailed dietary assessment because we've got lots of things that we cover. It's built around the social ecological model. So we capture 100% juice consumption, fruit, vegetable, and SSBs. For this analysis, we are limiting it to frequency of consumption. On this axis, we have the demographic characteristics of the children. So what we found was that among WIC, among older children who are not eligible for WIC but reside in WIC, the consumption for 100% juice, vegetable, and SSBs was slightly higher or was significantly higher in some demographic groups. We didn't find that difference when we looked at the whole sample, but remember we were interested in looking at did it vary by race, ethnicity, because we, looking at the literature, we anticipated that because consumption patterns are so different across race, ethnic, and age groups. So we have fruit juice among females, we have vegetables among 12 to 18-year-olds, and then we have sugar sweetened beverages among Hispanics. The odds ratio were about 6.61, so they had about 39% lower odds of consuming SSBs. And similarly for vegetables and juice, it's about 29% higher odds of consuming one more serving of vegetable or 100% juice. Then we did some exploratory analysis because we were interested in, is it all, so if you go back, is it all females? Is it all 12 to 18-year-olds? And is it all Hispanics who are, who we can attribute these findings to? And what we find is for 12 to 18-year-olds, we see the difference mostly in males and among African Americans, right? We don't see that difference among females. So females living in WIC households, whether they participate, non-eligible women, whether they live in WIC households or not, their consumption patterns are not different, but for males it is different. For African Americans, it's different. Similarly, when we look at juice, we find this is more true for younger children, 5 to 11-year-olds, than older children, and not in older children. And for SSBs, the reduction or the lower odds of consumption are higher among males than, and in the females, it's also different, but not that much. And this is important. To me, this is really critical because why? Why is an impact on SSB consumption among Hispanic males important? So just to reiterate, this is the WIC household, this is the non-WIC household. These are all same age children. Why is that important from a policy perspective or, from a public health perspective? SSBs, yeah. So it can affect, so we're seeing an effect, but it's important that we are seeing it, the largest impact on this population or this segment because obesity rates are highest among this, and we know SSB consumption is higher among Hispanics. And Hispanic male children tend to have highest rates of overweight and obesity. So if WIC is making a dent there, if it's having some influence on dietary patterns, it's something that we need to consider as we change things. And one of the recommendations from the National Academies of Medicine was related to amount of juice in the package. So if it's hard, we don't have enough data to kind of look at whether these children were compensating by drinking lower SSBs but drinking more juice. We weren't able to show that. But think about it this way, if your policy changes and you're giving less juice, can it impact SSB consumption because it's another beverage? So I think, not that we've shown that, but I think what we're raising is a point that when you change a packet, you've got to look at consumption patterns, not just among WIC participants, but participants who live in the household with those children. So why might the spillover effect be happening, right? One simple reason is household food sharing, right? There is more juice in the house. So instead of just my 3-year-old drinking that juice because he's the WIC participant, my older child drinks it too. So that's kind of the natural way or normal way we would think about it. But think about nutrition education, right? The mother or the father or the parent is getting nutrition education. That can have implications for the rest of the family. But the third one, which to me is really interesting, is the income sparing effect. So WIC package, does anyone have an estimate of how much it can cost, or how much, what's the dollar value of a WIC package? An estimate? So for a non-infant formula family, it's about $40 a month. But for an infant formula feeding family, it's a much larger cost, much larger benefit, right? So if you are getting $40 or $50 in a package, what are you doing with the income that you would have spent on that? So, right, so there is this income sparing effect. Now, when you combine this income sparing effect with nutrition education, it might lead to some better outcomes. You may use those money, the money that you're sparing on healthier foods, and you're already getting a healthier package with those $40 or $50. So in terms of WIC spillover effect, effect of changes on WIC package and non-participating children, and so this is what I was talking about, right? If the WIC packet changes, you start giving, I'll just use juice as an example, not that I'm saying juice is a healthier beverage or not. I'm just wanting us to think about it. What are the consequences of changing a package on other members of the household? Implication of spillover effect on participating members. So if my older kids are drinking the juice or eating the vegetables that my younger kid is getting, what are the implications of that on the younger child who's technically the participant? And then identifying the effects of the spillover. You know, if it is income sparing or if it's education, that's great. You know, how can we amplify that then? So identifying strategies for amplifying these spillover effects without jeopardizing the child or infant who is actually the beneficiary, because that's important, right? I mean, there was a reason why this child was chosen or a woman was chosen as a beneficiary. So you want to amplify these spillover effects, but you don't want to jeopardize the child who is the beneficiary. So next, I want to use fresh fruit and vegetable program as an example to demonstrate another spillover effect. But before we go there, any questions?
When you did the phone survey, did you list out examples of sugar-sweetened beverages?
Yes, yeah, and you know, it's still, we gave examples for juice, and we had juice drinks, and then diet beverages and sugar sweetened beverages with examples. But we know, you know, people don't know what's in what, right? So there is inherent bias in these kinds of measurements. But one possibility is that this bias would affect both groups of parents somewhat equally, right? So yes, there would be biases, but hopefully, you know, that's our assumption. Anything else?
For the non-WIC children in the household, was it strictly that they were never involved with WIC, or just the chance that they outgrew?
We don't know that. They were just non-participants. So they could have been on WIC. Yeah, they were no longer eligible for WIC. But we don't know if they had participated in WIC prior or not. Good question. So the fresh fruit and vegetable program, it's a relatively younger nutrition program from the USD. It's their most recent one. It was started in the 2008 Farm Bill, It was piloted in 2003 and then, evaluated. And then in 2008 became law. It became available in all 50 states and territories. And the goal of this program is, how many people have heard of the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program? Okay, so it's a program that provides snacks to children in school, fresh fruits and vegetables as snacks to children in school outside of the lunch and breakfast program. That's important. It's offered to the lowest, to the schools that have the highest free and reduced price eligibility in a state. And the goal is to improve children's diets, to create healthy eating habits, create healthier school environments by providing healthier choices in schools, expanding the variety of fruits and vegetables experience, because children don't always get exposed to all different kinds of fruits and vegetables, and to increase consumption. Please feel free to ask questions as I'm going. So as you can imagine, it's a much smaller program. Remember, WIC was almost $6 billion, and this is 171 million in 2018. Per student, a school gets between $50 to $75 over a year. They must provide at least 2 days of snacks to children. Some schools tend to do more, but they must provide at least two twice a week. And about 76,000 schools nationally serve 4 million children. In Arizona, there are about between 100 to 110 schools based on the year we're examining. And in Arizona, all schools that participate have 90% or more free and reduced price eligibility. So it really targets. Remember, one of the evaluation criteria I was telling you about is it targeting the right population that it's intended for? So this program does a fabulous job of that. Benefits of participation. Again, this program is relatively young, but it's been studied. So I've been studying this program since 2009-10. And what my work and others has found that, children who participate in this program have higher preference for fruits and vegetables, consume more fruits and vegetables, there is improved food environment in schools. So we found that schools that offered FFVP also tended to offer more fruits and vegetables at lunch meal. If once your children get used to eating fruits and vegetables, it's likely to be consumed at lunch. And then a recent study showed that there is a reduction in energy dense foods being brought from home to school as snacks, because the children are already getting these snacks in schools. So no. Yeah. So that's from the school wellness policy. So the school wellness policy dictate, schools, some schools are doing a fabulous job of, where they allow, and then there is the USDA Smart Snack Guidelines, which also suggest what you can or cannot bring from, offer in school outside of meals. But some schools are doing, even a better job of suggesting what other food is brought into schools. So this spillover effect study came because I was meeting with people in the community for some work related to schools in the Phoenix area, and the administrator from Department of Education said, "Have you heard anything about the FFVP? I was in this rural area, and the grocery store owner came to me and said, 'What are you doing in these schools? I'm running out of things that I normally don't run out of.'" So I said, "Well, that's interesting, So the first thought was, oh, the schools are buying this snack from the nearby store, and you can dismiss it all. So then the Undersecretary of USDA, Concanon, was visiting here. And I was talking to him about my work in FFVP, and he said, "Have you heard, by the way, I was in a rural area and the grocery store came, and the same story, similar idea, that they are saying that something's going on and we're running out of items that we normally do not. So do you know anything about it? And I said, okay, no, we don't, but we can find out. So, so the idea emerged from there, and what we did want to ask was, can the program that is offered at school, can it have a reach in homes and in grocery store settings? Because the intent of the program is to give fruits and vegetables as a snack to the child and increase their consumption that way. So we set out with about 300 fourth graders in 3 school districts in the Phoenix area. And this was again done with actually 2 students who, one looked at the parent piece and one looked at the child piece. And what we did was we had 6 matched schools, 3 FFVP, 3 non-FFVP, 2 classrooms per school. And we asked the students, we wanted to double check, if the data we were getting matched with what we already knew. So we asked about the preferences, consumption, self-efficacy to ask for fruits and vegetables. And then we asked them, what kinds of foods do you request when you go out shopping with your parents? So what we found was that, consistent with previous work, everyone said that they had more preference, better attitudes towards fruits and vegetables. They consumed a little bit more fruit than vegetable. They were more willing to ask their parents to give them fruit or vegetable for a snack. But then this was the question that I was most interested in. And what we found was, when children went with their parents to the grocery store to shop, there was no difference in the number of requests they made for snacks. And we had usually, we'd done some formative testing. So we had regular snack items on the list. So children asked about the same number, made same number of requests for snack items, Pop-Tarts, ice cream, cookies, what have you. But for fruit, they asked about maybe half time more they requested a fruit. But look at vegetables, like a 1.5 more requests for vegetables. And why is that important? Rich in nutrients. And what do we know about the guidelines and how well our kids eat? Right? They don't. I mean, it's like 1% of the population meets their of children meet their dietary guidelines. So this is huge. Right? If we can use this and we can build on this, if the children are asking for this stuff, this is great, So we asked the parents the same question. These were not all parents of 4th graders. These were dispersed over, so we had more variation. So we didn't find any significant results, but there were marginally more fruits and vegetables requested as reported by parents. So based on this, then can we say that school-based interventions may increase demands or requests for healthy foods outside of school settings, right? Where do you hear that, right? So could it be the nag factor? Could it be that, you hear this nag factor being used for going to McDonald's or for cookies or for cakes or something? But could this potentially be a factor that can affect whether children ask for more fruits and vegetables? And if we can, then this is like built-in advertising, right? McDonald's gives you, or other places give you taste tests. So here your child is getting a taste test in the school, and then when you go to buy that plum or peach, you're buying it because your child's requesting and it won't go to waste. So that's, I think, an interesting idea. And then how can you amplify it, right? If my child comes back from having eaten a plum in school and now asks me to buy plum, and now if I can somehow figure out a way to cross-promote that plum across wherever I go shopping, I can amplify that effect, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So as a next step, we said, okay, we're interested in this cross-promotion thing, but would others care? Would schools want to work with stores, and would parents even participate? So we set out to do a qualitative examination to see, can we develop this public-private partnership between schools and stores to see if they'll cross-promote or develop this public-private partnership so that they can cross-promote fruits and vegetables. We talked to a number of stakeholders in grocery stores, in schools, to parents, to SNAP-Ed programs. I'll just give you some snippets from this. What we found was that grocery stores were really interested because they see it as a, they want to help their community, but they also see it as a PR piece. They see value in maybe sales going up because people just don't buy that plum when they get to the store, they buy other things as well. Schools saw it as an advantage because they said this would open a dialogue between parent and child to learn what's happening in school. Parents like the benefits. So this is my favorite quote about benefits of the program as reported by a mother. She says, when I go home, my child comes and says, Mom, did you bring me grapes? The mother says, no, I'll bring them tomorrow. And if I don't do it, he keeps telling me until I have a chance to go and get them. This is nagging, right? Anyone who's got a child or a little brother or sister, this is nagging, right? And then their response to would they participate in a public-private partnership is, I would like it, especially if it was a sale, a weekly sale, that would be great. That would really encourage me to buy it. So, if my child says I had a plum, I liked it, and then I go to the grocery store, plums are on sale, my chances of buying that plum, especially when my child says I want to buy the plum, increase. So they also, when we talked to the stakeholders, they also talked about barriers, right? They said, if you start, and some schools do that, if you start giving out star fruit or dragon fruit in fresh fruit and vegetable program, you can do all the cross promotion you want. I'm not buying that $5 piece of fruit for my child, even, no matter how much, I'll bribe with a cookie or something, but I wouldn't buy that $5 piece of fruit because I don't know anything about it. And it's so darn expensive. So that's a barrier. So we have to think about what do we want to cross promote. The next barrier is schools don't have time, right? Schools personnel are the busiest people on this planet, if you ask me, because I work with them and it's so hard to find time with them. So they say we'll do it as long as it is quick, easy, and clear and concise. I know what I have to do. Give me a recipe, I'll follow it. Not recipe for cooking, but recipe for what steps are involved. And then stores are worried that if there is no communication, how will we move forward? Somebody will drop the ball. So I think these are all great things that we've learned about the possibility of working a public-private partnerships. Now we are at a stage where we are, looking for grant funding to pilot such a public-private partnership and test it, because we think that together between schools and stores, bring in the SNAP-Ed program, that kind of facilitates it, right? Because they want, schools are busy, stores are busy, somebody needs to bring them together. And I call SNAP-Ed a catalyst in this case. They can be a catalyst and help us then amplify the benefits of the fresh fruit and vegetable program, but it needs to be tested out, and that's what we are setting out to do. So it's, in my mind, it's a win-win strategy. Schools benefit, stores benefit, parents benefit, and it doesn't cost a lot of money because stores are already doing the promotions. Schools are already giving out the FFVP. I gave a talk to one of the retail groups, and I said, it's like free samples for your products that you are selling. Somebody is already doing it. So there is nothing in it that you don't want to. And the stores are really interested. We just have to figure out a way to test the strategy. So just in summary, so amplification of spillover effects of school food assistance programs are a reality, right? This can happen. We've seen it in 2 examples. There may be others. And we need to figure out strategies for amplifying the effects of these spillover effects, but without any unintended consequences, right? We don't want to benefit one member at the cost of doing damage to the other. Just what I said, that we need to address it for the participants.
Do you think, going back to the number 2 strategies, do you think there'll be like a policy or procedure laid out so that the grocery stores don't increase their prices of their produce
for those items? Yeah. So that's it. So, so our goal is, once we test this public-private partnership, we want to have enough evidence so we can urge USDA to put in their policy that the schools or the SNAP-Ed must collaborate with grocery stores. You can't require, because it's a free business, you can't require grocery stores to do it, but grocery stores want to work with schools. They really do want to work with school. I didn't really anticipate as much interest as I got from grocery stores, because they see them as future customers, right? So there may not be a policy that says you cannot increase the price, but there may be ways of encouraging them to incentivize purchases through coupons or through sales or what have you. So I think that's more of a way I think would go with FFPP. And then as we change the programs, impact of these spillover effects need to be examined. So that's all that I have, but I want you to take a minute and think about the programs that you know, and give me ideas for my next research project. Where do you see where do you think there may be spillover effects, positive or negative? And I can give you some examples of negative spillover effects or negative spillover effects that we have examined. Can anyone think of a negative?
You mentioned the financial for the schools, but also at the home, if it's a low-income family, and son or daughter's coming home saying, "Hey, did you get grapes? Did you get blueberries? Did you get all these things that are expensive?"
Yeah.
Might have a reciprocating effect in that. Now, mom might be saying, "No, we're definitely not getting those things
because they're expensive." Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Right. So therefore, you need that cross promotions to kind of incentivize those purchases, right? Because without that, it's another nagging, there's enough financial constraints. Now the child's asking for something beyond that. Yeah, we can, but education only goes so far. I didn't talk about that. I spent like a good bit of my time, my life, doing nutrition education programs. It's very hard to get outcomes with that without other incentives, without other motivations, right? So we need these other things to help express, the benefits of that education. So I totally agree with you that we need that education. We need that. But I think one way to educate might be in the store at the time of point of sale. Your child had this in school. So instead of buying a bag of cookies for snack, buy some grapes this time. And by the way, the grapes are on sale. Right? So that might be the way to get to it than directly. But you're absolutely right. This could be, nagging can be bothersome, and bothersome if your budget is tight.
I worked for Washington Elementary School District, which
was one of the schools, yeah. Yeah.
So I was in charge of planning our fresh fruit and vegetable program, and when I first started, I'm like, oh, we can do watermelon and dragon fruit, like not even thinking beyond like these are so cool. But then everyone's like, we need to build in carrots. Like,
yeah.
Let's have normal items because the cost of it is massive. So having like normal fruits and vegetables was really valuable as well. That $50 to $75 goes an amazing long way. And we could have had dragon fruit literally like every day, and we would have had plenty of money, which is great. With being aware of that, we did a ton of nutrition ed. There was announcements every morning, like this is what everyone's getting today. The kids took all little cards, and then the parents were involved in the process. So there is some cool stuff happening, but then to take it to the next step to the stores, and like I think I would plan the calendar probably like 2 months in advance. So it's really like planning it, the seasonality of the fruits and vegetables, and then getting to the stores in time for the ordering. Is it's a whole.
But it can be done. So Washington is I think that is the district that prints out a calendar actually. How much, and there are changes to it. And when we talk to the stores, they said we'd like to have advance notice, but we're, our supplies change. So we're willing to change last minute kind of things, right? So other questions or Other ideas for spillover effects? Sorry.
That's not really an idea for spillover, but I was just touching on, adding on to what he was mentioning, with low income.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a low income person for like a very long time, because when I got in a spinal cord injury car accident, I lost my job. I got to get out of school.
I'm
I got no
sorry.
scholarships and like all that. So
Yeah.
it took me down to like the bare scratch minimum of living off of like $70 for a month.
Mm.
And that's where I started off and kind of working my way out of that. But coming from that, touching on that topic, I think it would help if like social workers probably got involved, or like the public service would get involved. Like
Yeah.
you said, SNAP would be a catalyst. I
Right.
think they could be used also as like a good resource, like public
Absolutely,
services that are
yeah.
out there, food banks, as well as like grocery stores, just people that have knowledge of dealing with people that shop with low income.
Right.
Like I shop at Food City because
Yeah.
their produce is
They
far
are
cheaper.
they were our partners in this. So this
Yeah,
study
their
was,
produce is like
Yeah.
extremely way
Yeah.
cheaper than most normal grocery stores.
Yeah.
I like Safeway just because the produce and vegetables are well displayed, but
Mhm.
as far as their prices,
It's-
sometimes
yeah.
it's like $5 a pound for
Yeah,
cherries and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So.
But you're so right, so it could, the cross promotion doesn't have to end with stores, right? You could do it with the food banks, you could do it with food pantries, you could extend it to different places so that, you're seeing the same kind of things that your child ate at school. And that then, has the potential to impact the whole family, right?
Like there's like a top, like where you educate the parents, because the parents are the
Parents,
ones buying the
Right.
groceries. They're the ones, like the kids can go down the aisle with their mom.
Yeah.
But I've seen more, like my sister-in-law, she'd rather just shop online
Right.
and just pick it up at
so the kids are
Walmart.
not, yeah.
So they're not in the aisle
Yeah.
saying, I want this, I want that. And so I would think since the parents have the income and they have the money and they're buying the groceries.
Right. So,
Good
SNAP
stuff.
Ed program is the education
Yeah,
piece,
the
but other programs might as well play a role in here also, whether it's WIC or social workers or anyone who's working with the parents and children to then kind of pick up the pieces and say, hey, your child's eating this or that. And then so food budgets are constrained, right? People are not suddenly going to have extra money because their child had a plum at school. So that means the money that goes towards buying that plum has to come from somewhere else, and maybe it will come from not buying the cookie, right? And maybe it will come from other savings that the parent would have to do. So you're absolutely right. So that doesn't, the child's demand for a healthier item doesn't mean the parent has the money for it, right? So how do we make it happen? One is through education, to tell the parents, if you don't have money to buy plum, maybe you could not buy something else and buy the plum, and to make the plum cheaper. Those are the intervention handles we have in our hand, kind of to address.
Evaluation budgets often being too small, perhaps to investigate everything. Like,
Sure.
But your spillover effects, the WIC, that seems really important. Do you see that ever being incorporated in WIC evaluations, even the website?
Our paper is out for review right now, but so we did it on a relatively smaller sample of 600 kids. But I think our next, if I can get time and if I can get another student interested, is to look at it in a larger sample, in a national sample, and see, can we see this effect in a larger, and then to take it to WIC and say, hey, it's not that WIC should change its policy and start giving a larger portion so other members of the household can eat, but to keep that in mind when you're drafting policy, when you're changing policy, to do some assessments of, do no harm. So the intake among the 3-year-old may not matter as much as an intake in the older child. So yeah, I mean, eventually that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is to see if the WIC program can start thinking about these things, because right now no one's thinking about spillover effects.
It made me think about, I feel like this program has the potential to also have an influence on the culture of students and their peers. And I wonder if there is a spillover effect of the students that are in participating schools when they perhaps feed into other middle schools, if
Good
them being
point.
more receptive to fruits and vegetables could
Yeah.
translate. Like,
And we know this peer role modeling is so important, right? If my friends think I brought vegetables for snack, and I making that face because I got that face a lot from my kids. So then it's not cool. But if 6 people start bringing it, then it becomes like the cool thing, and you're not the only one whose mother forces you to eat fruits and vegetables.
What's cool about the program is that it's outside of normal lunch.
Right.
When they're also concentrated on other stuff, but in
Yeah.
that classroom moment when everyone is eating it together, it's like a break. It seems like it would be a break from their studying too. It's a little bit more social.
Yeah.
That's cool. High schools do it that way.
Yeah.
Understand it along the way afterwards, but
Yeah, yeah. And schools do it differently. Some are really creative. I mean, Washington District, we were so impressed with how they had planned it. And there are others who, don't necessarily do such a great job. And the nice part about this program is you have to apply. Nice or for a researcher, a nightmare is that school, and I'm sure it's for schools also, that schools have to apply every year. So if you're looking for consistent patterns, it's very difficult, So again, Washington was a example where gold star, yeah.
Mesa School District, every school could apply,
But they,
went off the program.
yeah, they went.
I mean, it just made me so sad. Like they're all at 90%
Yeah.
higher, and they decided to stop applying.
So schools, if they don't use the money wisely, can't apply next year. So it's pretty tightly run program, and the goals are pretty well designed. So I think, an example from my time on the Hill. So, there is lobbyists all the time on the Hill. So there was big lobbying going on for the fresh fruit and vegetable program by the canning and the frozen industry to offer frozen and canned foods for snacks. So, one of the committee members said, there's a blank reason that there is a fresh in front of the name, So, yeah.
Yeah, I interned up at Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
For the USDA.
Yeah.
And that was one of my concerns because with commodity foods coming to the reservation,
Yeah.
a lot of them are high in cans and
Sure.
foods that
Yeah.
are low in high fibers. They're all white bread, white rice, white
Right.
pasta. and stuff
Highly
like that.
processed.
That was one of my concerns that I spoke with the director there.
Yeah.
I raised my hand and
Yeah.
then I went back to the res after that summer and I was just like, oh, well, nothing, my one question didn't change anything.
But,
And
we
then
got to
out
keep
of
asking.
nowhere, the commodity, they had apples and potatoes
There
and
you see.
oranges.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, it's because you asked that one question.
But, we got to keep asking these questions, because the pressures from all other sources are so high, so intense. So you got to keep raising that voice. You've got to keep that public health or population health focus on. So all of you are getting trained, and whatever positions you have, keep raising that voice, and your voice is really important. Oops.